cook-off on Saturday? Maybe. Ladies and gentlemen, please bring to the stage the award-winning superstar, film actor, soap actor, TV actor, theater actor, singer, choreographer, dancer, sports enthusiast. I mean, mother, wife. I was going to say grandmother. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the extraordinary Na Ashoko Mensah Doku. This conversation will be moderated by, if you have followed his trajectory, then you know indeed it's African time, it's our time, and all the things we've said this morning would make sense. Please welcome the global superstar, the one who makes social media so vibrant, films so beautiful, storytelling so flawless. Please put your hands together for the Chief Executive Officer of NAS Company, Nusir Yassin. Nusir, you have to dance, you have to dance, you have to dance. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
Hi, everybody. Good, more energy, more
Good
energy.
morning!
There we go. Okay. Let's begin. We have 15 minutes, okay? And we want to make sure everybody pays attention to our conversation.
Okay. 100%.
Great. So let's disagree, okay, guys? We will disagree.
Okay.
And then we will agree.
What did we agree? I disagree. Already.
Already exciting. So first of all, good to be back in Africa. I'm really excited. Thank you, ABS, for the invitation. This is fantastic. Today, guys, we're going to talk about the future of content creation. Raise your hand if you use social media or watch TV. That is literally everybody. Now, today we have three very interesting individuals. One person does movies on Hollywood. That is the most premium type of content. Very amazing. The other person does news and journalism on TV. Very important content.
Yeah.
And the third person just does TikToks. Okay? But we all reach different people in different ways,
That's
guys.
it.
So what is the problem with content in Africa?
Well, I think the problem with content in Africa is just like controlling the narrative and being aggressive about who we are and portraying who we are. You know, we have to take inspiration from the rest of the world. The reason why Hollywood excels in the way that it excels is because they are aggressive and intentional about who they are, whether it's their music, their art, their film, their television, even their apparel. And then you look at how Bollywood as well is the very same way, very aggressive, very intentional. We also need to be the same way when it comes to African content. We have to be aggressive, we have to be intentional, we have to be clear, and we have to be proud about the fact that we have so many rich stories that are coming out of Africa. I mean, we're at ABH. ABH is going to be a documentary in a couple of years. Yeah. You know, when we're looking back at the numbers of, it started off with the top 10 and now here we are with the class of, 2065 when we're long dead. Or still here.
Okay, so you say the problem is that there's not enough narrative told about Africa.
Well, that is clear that it is African content and that we're not trying to emulate the world, but we are trying for the world to also come to Africa and emulate Africa, which is exactly what's happening. Amapiano, Afro beats, in terms of so many incredible entrepreneurs and smart people, smart young people who are leaving the continent and going to these Ivy League colleges overseas and don't come back to Africa. There's a reason why our talent when it comes to different industries is being poached by the rest of the world. We are equal contenders.
We are equal contenders. I like that.
Love it.
Now, what is the problem, in your opinion, when it comes to content creation in Africa?
Well, I think what we need to do more of is tell more authentic stories about the African, about the African woman, about our music, about our people, our culture, our food, our clothes, and so on. Now, it's very easy to be swayed by Western narratives because there's so much happening in the West and it's so easy to want to be like the West. But what I constantly do in my space is to insist on originality and insist on telling the authentic African story. Who are we as a people? What are the sort of things we like? What are the good things things that are happening on our continent and the good things that are coming out of the continent. Those are the things that we need to highlight. So in my work, in my line of work as a television journalist, and I also do produce content for social media, I'm always very intentional, especially, I'm biased a little bit, about producing and telling the story of the African woman,
Absolutely.
our heroes, and the good and wonderful things
Got
we're
it.
doing.
Okay, so it's time to disagree.
Okay.
Because I disagree with both of you guys. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Just to make the conversation interesting. So like you, I come from the Middle East.
Yes.
I'm Arab.
Sure.
And Arabs are portrayed in a different way in Western media, and I did not like that. So I said, you know what? I cannot go to Hollywood. I'm not as pretty as you are or talented as you are. And Hollywood is so hard to get into, right?
Yeah,
I cannot
it's
be
true.
on TV. It's so hard to get into. So I said, I'm going to take control of my destiny, and I'm going to pick up a phone and a camera, and I'm going to make videos and put them on Facebook.
Okay.
Right now, the cost of making a video on Facebook is zero. The cost of making a video on TikTok is zero, right? So technically now
zero. Technically
Africa
zero,
can
but
tell
not
its story.
zero.
What?
Technically zero, but not zero because you still need equipment. And you still
Okay,
need a
but the
team to
equipment
help
is
you
your
out.
phone. Does anybody here not have a phone?
Is it free?
Oh, come on. Who here does not have a phone? Get out.
Said you want to
Who
disagree?
here
so
has
yeah.
a free phone? Free phone? It's not free.
There
Okay,
it is.
but what I'm trying to say is now, actually, for the first time
Yeah.
in the history of humanity, African and Africans can tell their story to the world
Yes.
on TikTok and Facebook.
Yeah.
Not on Hollywood, because that's really hard.
Yeah.
But on TikTok, it's very easy. So what's holding us back?
What's holding us back is the fact that we don't have our own original Netflix. We don't have our
Why
own
do we need a
Amazon.
Netflix? We have
don't-
TikTok.
No, but we can have a TikTok, but we also need, so for example, outside of Hollywood, right? I don't star in Hollywood movies only. I also am a producer, and we just put out a show called Shaga Ilembe, which tells the story of Shaga Zulu, which is authentically African in every sense.
Right.
It's told from the lens of an African, because we found that so many of our stories are not so much from our gaze and from our own narrative. It's from the West coming
Yes.
in and deciding that this is who you are.
What's the cost
So
of
even
making
with
that content?
250 million rand. But here's the
Oh
thing.
my goodness, what's
no,
that in
But
dollars?
here's the thing. We need money to be able to create stuff that is of high quality.
Yeah.
To show that people who are your cinematographers, your directors, your producers, your actors can be able to make authentic stuff that is of the scale of a Game of Thrones. And so when we are
That's
at the
interesting.
international Emmys, we also want to be able to be equal contenders when it comes to quality
Yeah.
productions.
Yeah.
That Africa doesn't produce low budget, because that's the narrative that, oh, it's low budget. We don't have to be low budget. And even if it is, there are Hollywood
Are you
movies.
calling Nas Daily low budget? Is that what I understood?
No, here's the thing. We can't.
What's
be
wrong
able-
with low
we can't-
budget content?
This is what I was about to say. Even Hollywood has low budget. A24 produces low budget films, and low budget in American terms is $2 million. But
Imagine that.
right. But here's the thing: you're able to take whatever it is that you're able to make from the low budget and be able to sell it. Now, Africa's main concern at the moment when it comes to our content, and I hope there's big players here who are willing to invest in this, is that we are struggling with distribution.
Yeah.
So we can make something that's incredible, that's amazing, and it can be able to have footprint on TikTok, but you still want to be able to, outside of TikTok, get the 65-year-olds who are not on TikTok who want to watch your content.
Makes sense.
Right?
Clear. What's your take?
On producing
Should we go and get $2 million to make high premium African content? Or should we go and just empower 1,000 TikTokers to make content about Africa?
Well, I think we can do a bit of both. TikTok is consumed by most young people around the world. And the more African content we put on TikTok, the more people around the world will reach with our content. Now, I, for instance, on most of my Insta posts and my TikTok, which isn't doing so well, I will put out content wearing African prints, for instance. This outfit I'm wearing is made by Pistis in Accra, Ghana. She's one of the best dressmakers and designers designers on the continent, in my opinion. I'd want to wear African braids. I want to, every now and again, chip in a bit of Ga, because that's the language I speak. I'm Ga from Accra. So here's the thing. The more of such content we put on TikTok, the more people around the world will know about our story and what we do and who we are as a people. I like to insist on authenticity and sticking to who we are. The African story told by Africans, the way Africans are.
But last time I opened CNN, CNN has just like Western journalists.
I beg your pardon?
CNN journalism is just Western journalists telling the story of Africa.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate. But that's unfortunate. We need more Africans telling the African story. And thankfully, we see a lot of new young Africans working and telling good stories on the BBC. The BBC has Focus on Africa.
Yeah.
We have Komla Dumodelate, who was telling great African stories on BBC. Now we have people like Komla from Joy FM in Ghana, now on BBC, and a lot of other young people telling the African story there. Bless the BBC for Focus on Africa. But that said, about investing over $200 million or whatever in creating movies about Africa, why not? Why not? I tell you, the best stories about our humanity and our culture are in Africa.
Absolutely.
The best stories about the world stem from Africa.
Totally.
In fact, you can trace a bit of Africanness and Africanity in all the good stories of this world, from who we are. And just, if you've been to Africa, you know Africans, you know that it's more than a continent and people and their color. It's their humanity.
Yeah.
It's the color. It's the wealth in our stories, which we need that money to create, by the way. So let's create the TikTok videos, let's create the beautiful Insta Reels, but let's get good investors. And if our investors are here, there are stories of Kwame Nkrumah we need to tell. There are stories of Yaa Asantewaa we need to tell. We have seen stories about great African heroes, but we can tell them better.
Yeah.
And we need that money to make it possible.
So here's something that most people do not know. When I started Nas Daily, I was living in New York. And I said, I want to make stories. I want to tell stories about the world. Where should I start?
Ghana.
Mama Africa.
Hello.
And so Nas Daily started in Nairobi, Kenya.
Wow. Amazing.
Wow.
And then
Yes,
Ethiopia,
yes.
and then Rwanda, and then the rest of the world. So I do agree with you guys. The stories in Africa are gold.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, what I'm understanding from everything they're saying, guys, to simplify is, to tell the story of Africa, there's 3 directions we can go. We can go the direction of Hollywood.
No.
Let's raise $2 million, make high premium quality content and put it on Netflix.
Yes.
We can go the direction of journalism. Let's hire more African BBC journalists and CNN journalists. And we can go the direction of Instagrammers and TikTokers and YouTubers and empower them with their phone to make content about Africa.
And it doesn't have to live in silos. I think
Yeah.
there's definitely, there's such a merger that's happening when it comes to what's happening on social media and what's happening on television.
Yeah.
We live in the digital age. There's no way that it lives in silos. We are all so very much connected. You get the best movie reviews on TikTok.
Yeah.
You
Correct.
get the best movie reviews on Instagram.
But can we
you know?
agree that to start telling the story of Africa, we can start with $0?
We absolutely
Well-
can, but we also need to educate private sector in Africa that it is feasible, that there is a lot of money and commercialization and potential when it comes to content
So how
creation.
can we make money from content in Africa? Tell me.
Keep original and keep authentic. You see, here's the thing.
No, but tell me exactly how.
Yeah.
Where can I get the money?
Where can I get the money?
Yes.
Well, we would like investors, but to be able to pull the investors, we need to show that we have something different. We can all go the Hollywood style. We can all
Absolutely.
keep westernizing our movies
Right.
and westernizing our clothes and westernizing everything. The more original, the higher the probability of good investment, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I
If we're
love
all
that.
doing the same thing, well, then we'll all just do the same thing. Then why send all of that money there? But if I could give you something different, if I could give you something that you wouldn't get anywhere else in the world, and that's what you get in Africa.
Absolutely.
Original content, the language. You know how many
I'm
languages
making it
there
right
are in
now.
Africa? I don't know how many languages there are in
There's like
Africa.
thousands
Just
of languages.
Thousands of languages.
I mean, here's the thing also that
Exactly.
happened at the Oscars a couple of years ago. For the very first time in Oscar history, a non-American film, a foreign language film,
Yes.
a small film called Parasite, if you've seen it,
Yep.
a brilliant film, won Best Picture.
Yes.
Because it was authentic. It was authentic. So if we are steadfast and aggressive and intent on telling authentic stories about who we are, we can enter the big stages and be able to dominate those big stages without having to compromise on the quality of who we are because we want to play to the West. And before we run out of time, to anyone who is a director, a producer, a writer, or anyone who's wanting to go into this space, it also helps to be able to not concentrate on collaborating up. Collaborating up meaning you are constantly chasing the chief director, the chief whoever. It's important to be able to collaborate across. We are in this room with so many people who are rich in knowledge from different sectors. Reach out, collaborate across, and don't be fixated with collaborating up. And when you collaborate across, you're able to cut down on so many costs. So if somebody's really good with camera and you're fantastic in front of the camera, you don't have to pay that person because they need you to be able to build on their reel.
Yeah.
You see how it does? So you don't sometimes have to have capital to be able to start. And also crowdfunding when it comes to producing. Crowdfunding means that people can be able to get a producing credit on your whatever project that you may be working on, whether you're on social media or whether it's film and television, when you are crowdfunding, people can be able to get a producer credit and just give you a little bit of money. So you can have 10,000, well, not 10,000, but you can probably have like 60 producers on your project because they have given you that 500, that 1,000,
Community
that 10,000.
funded.
Yeah.
So
Go for
crowdfunding,
community
you
funded
must
stuff.
also think about it when you're trying to raise funds to be able to start whatever it is that you're going to
Amazing.
start. And do not give up on the first no. Give up maybe on the 10,000th no.
Actually, thank you so much for saying that. On that note, we have 15 seconds left. I want to say we need more things like ABH happening here in Africa because that is really the spark of conversations, of collaborations, of content. I'm really excited for the future of content in Africa. Thank you guys so much for being so cool to
Thank
chat
you.
with.
Thank
you, everybody.
Nana Mzamo and Nasir, thank you so much for that insightful conversation. Wow.